Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. I am Dave Biddle. I'm very happy joined by Matt Baxendell. Bax, you're a big hockey fan. You're liking my old school Columbus chill shirt here. I should be wearing a Blue Jackets shirt. I know. Blue Jackets opening night tonight, but they're on the road. I got my chill shirt on, but you're a huge hockey guy. Well, let's get into Ohio State football. There's a ton to talk about. It is the off week for the Buckeyes. It's not the off week for us. A lot of stuff yesterday. I tell you what, I mean, it was a robust day for the media yesterday. We had a chance to talk to Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, Justin Frye, and Larry Johnson. So that was really cool. Let's get into I think the main topic is they're hoping to get a decent amount of injured guys back for the Iowa game. Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, of course, is the main one there. Maybe Jordan Hancock. And then Mayan Williams, we were told that was minor anyway. It sounds like he'll be back for Iowa, but JSN's the one I want you to focus on. What do you think they should do, even if he's medically cleared? Do you want him to see him knock the rust off against Iowa, or would you prefer they just play it safe since it's a hammy and wait till Penn State?
Wait till Penn State. That's where I'm at on this, because if he has one more tweak, you don't know if that could take away the rest of his season. We need the guy for Penn State. We need the guy for Michigan. We need the guy for beyond. That's what we need him for right now. And right now, to be quite frank, if you look at Marvin Harrison Jr.'s numbers, they're virtually the same numbers through 6 games as Jordan Addison's was last year when he won the Biletnikoff at Pitt. So it's not like we're having trouble completing passes right now. So, yes, Jaxon Smith-Njigba is the best receiver in the country, but we don't bring back the super weapon until we know the super weapon is firing correctly. And at this point, I am treating it with beyond kid gloves. If there's even a wince on his face over the previous week leading up to Iowa, don't put him on the field. Don't put him on the field. Save him for Penn State. Here's the reality is that, with Iowa, Ohio State's probably going to beat them no matter what you have, whether it's JSN or not at receiver. So hopefully JSN's back for the Penn State game. I don't want to see him before that. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think Ryan Day knows that too.
It also gives them a chance, as I said, hopefully Jordan Hancock can come back. Again, I wouldn't mind holding him out till Penn State. I mean, we can make all the Iowa offense jokes we want, but seriously, like, their offense is terrible. I mean, but then again, maybe you feel like you need to knock the rust off of Hancock.
Yes.
We'll see what happens there. It also gives the guys that have been on a pitch count backs this week off. It's great for guys like Michael Hall Jr., who's been on a pitch count. How about him? He played 7 snaps, had 2.5 sacks. That might be the best production I've ever seen. And that was the plan going in. He could have played more, they said, but why not just put him in there and passing down and see if he can be disruptive? He can be disruptive. He has 4.5 sacks on the season now. I don't think I've ever seen that in football. 7 plays, 2.5 sacks. Unless we're talking about like mop-up duty time, when the guy's in there, like when the game's on the line, they just are picking and choosing when to put him in there. 7 snaps, 2.5 sacks. It's ridiculous. So Cam Brown, guys like that have been on pitch counts, it gives them a chance to get healthy. And we've already had a commenter about this. I'm gonna get your thoughts on this. Because we have a lot of people, I think, feel this way because of maybe what happened with Nick Bosa a few years ago. A lot of people are saying, like Steven on YouTube backs, that JSN might not take another snap at Ohio State. Now, initially, that is what I heard, and that was a concern. But then I heard from multiple sources that, no, that's not what's going to happen. He will return. Is that a concern of yours that Jaxon won't come back, that he'll just get ready for the draft?
I said that right when the injury happened, that there's a real chance that if this lingers at all, he's not going to play. And the reality is, what's the worst case that happens for him if he doesn't play this year? He gets drafted 10th. I mean, the truth is that the kid, he watched what happened with LSU, right? And when you have a top receiver sit out a whole year because Joe Burrow's not there to throw to him, and then the guy goes in the top 10, it doesn't really matter, right? So that was my biggest concern. That was my biggest concern after that injury happened was if this is remotely impactful, there's going to be people in his ears immediately to shut it down and protect that generational wealth that's coming his way. I don't think that's what he wants to do, but I can guarantee you if he comes back too early and he tweaks it again, that's going to be exactly what people are telling him to do, and he may be more prone to listen to it this time. You have to remember, JSN's big brother is like a AAA baseball player, right? He knows the way the pro game works and how difficult it is, right? And the truth is that this kid, if he's hurt again, if he tweaks that hammy too early again, there's going to be a lot of very smart people looking at him going, you know how much money's on the line here? I don't care if it's the playoffs against Alabama. You don't need to play. That's just a very real fear. And in an era where there's so much money in the sport, it's not for like the love of the game here we're talking about. I think JSN desperately wants the team to be this team, right? On the field. He desperately wants to go out and win a natty. He desperately wants to make up for Ann Arbor last year. But there's a certain point where money talks, and that's a concern. So don't rush him back until he is fully healthy, because we need him to come back. We need him to come back healthy. Otherwise, yes, we're going to barely see him play if he gets another hammy tweak.
I agree with you 100%. Now, obviously, the biggest concern, Ryan Day talked about this, and then Jim Knowles talked about this as well. Now, first of all, this defense overall is playing great. Number 7 total defense in the country. Absolutely love it. Now, obviously, they haven't been playing, the best offenses in the world. But it's just going to go up with it. That ranking will go up after they play Iowa, you would have to think. But number 7 total defense in the country. But obviously, the one concern is 50-50 balls with the corners and just corner play in general. Can they get that correct? Or are you confident this is something that they can get fixed? Or do you think this is going to be something that lingers when they play teams that can actually throw the football?
It's going to linger. So what happens when you only have 6 scholarship cornerbacks and half of them are hurt all the time. The reality is that what we were hoping would happen this year at the position is that Denzel Burke would continue to develop like we thought. We thought he was on the Denzel Ward track, right, where he only got better. And, this is just normal that sometimes a guy struggles in his second season. But Denzel Burke has not been that lockdown corner on the other side. Cam Brown has been in and out of the lineup with injuries. And then after that, we're down to freshmen. That's just the reality. Hancock was supposed to be our number 3 cornerback coming through camp and everything. We haven't seen him play a snap yet. So, everybody's going to eventually get better at it, right? That's just part of playing the sport. But at the end of the day, we haven't seen anything that makes us believe it's going to change for the better this season. I haven't seen magically Burke get better. I haven't seen, these young guys do anything more than kind of take their lumps and play well when given the opportunity. But what our concerns with corner are, they're going to be there for a while. The reality is I just don't know who we're going to play that's going to really be able to take major advantage of it, even through the Big Ten season. I mean, maybe Maryland. Penn State doesn't pass the ball great. I mean, Sean Clifford's not going to pick you apart. Our rivals to the north, they're okay throwing the ball, but they like to pound the football. That's their number 1 gig. And who out west is going to throw the ball so much? I mean, as you get maybe Purdue, that's the one team that throws the ball reasonably well. I mean, Minnesota doesn't really pass it a ton. Illinois, who's ranked in the top 25 somehow. When we go through potential Big Ten championship opponents, none of them are air raid, right? It wouldn't be till a playoffs environment where you potentially have to run into a Bryce Young that you get nervous about it.
Yeah, Michigan has no downfield passing game. I've been talking about it. I talked about it on the post-game show, after the Michigan State game, because I obviously watched Michigan play Indiana that game. I talked about it on Monday's podcast. They're dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk. J.J. McCarthy. Now, maybe, because he's so new into his starting career, maybe he'll develop that. But right now, they have no downfield passing game at all, the Michigan Wolverines, and I'm here for it. Speaking of quarterbacks, speaking of second-year quarterbacks, Ryan Day was asked the question that for some reason spurned like a 20-page thread on Bucknuts about Kyle McCord throwing the ball in games where Ohio State has the game in hand. And it's that balance of you want to get your backup quarterback and probably the starting quarterback next year some reps actually throwing the football and not just handing off. And McCord did have 2 passes, but, get him maybe, 10 passes if you can. Mm-hmm. And the balance of doing that versus not wanting to run up the score against a coach that you actually like and respect in Mel Tucker. If this was Mike Loxley, who I know Ryan Day doesn't like, or if this was another coach who we know up north, another coach in the state that Mel Tucker coaches in, maybe a different story, Bax. But where do you come down on that? And where do you come down? What did you think of Ryan Day's answer? Because he basically just he's like, listen, I'm not going to change. I get what you're saying, and I do believe game reps are very, very important. But and he's like, if it's the end of the third quarter, early fourth quarter, keep playing. But once the game, he basically said once it's completely out of hand in the fourth quarter, he's going to respect the game and he's going to call the dogs off. What do you think about that whole situation? A lot to unpack there.
I think it's a selective dog calling off like you referenced. The fact that he likes Mel Tucker is the reason that wasn't 60-something points. Because McCord wants to throw the ball all over the field. If you ask these kids what they're doing, they go out and they want to bomb the ball, right? That's simple. And those kids want to get better. That's simple. I think it was up to the kids. They just keep playing ball. But I do think Ryan Day has to balance it a little bit. I don't buy this respect the game thing that much, right? They're on scholarship too. You're lining up to play the football for fourth quarter, right? It's the same game as it is the first snap or the last snap before like a kneel down situation, right? So to me, that rings a little hollow, but I understand that that's the mentality that the coaches have. The bigger thing for me is that if I'm Ryan Day and my team's banged up and we're going into a bye week, is it really worth pushing it when we want to just try to get the clock moving as much as possible to get your team healthy? That would have been the easiest answer to me. And I think that's as much as it is. The two honest answers to it are, one, he likes Mel Tucker and didn't want to embarrass him too bad when Michigan State's having a rough year. And two, hey, let's just get this thing over with. I don't want to risk getting anybody hurt. Shame on us for 1,000 years if somebody gets injured in the fourth quarter on a bomb downfield and then they're out for the season, right? I think that's a real thought on it. But, yeah, there's going to be some of these games. And here's the other thing. Ryan Day was around. Remember when Urban was trying to go for 70 that one year against Michigan? And one of our offensive linemen, who was the offensive lineman that got hurt there in like the last drive? And that's when Urban started.
It was Demetrius Knox.
Yep, Demetrius Knox. He got hurt and he's out. Yeah, and that was like the football god saying that's enough, right? And I think Ryan Day learned a little bit of a lesson there, cautionary tale, if you will, because Urban wanted 70 in that game. We all knew Urban wanted 70 in that game, and Ryan Day was his offensive coordinator that year, if memory serves. And the reality is, when OSU kept their foot on the gas, we lost somebody to injury. So I don't think he wants to see that happen. I think that more than anything is the reason he held back.
And that's a good point. And people might say, well, wait, that's keeping the starters in. What about the backups are in with Kyle McCord? But you don't want to get Kyle McCord hurt either. In a game like that, like he's your backup quarterback. And yeah, Devin
Brown, Hayden suddenly somebody we don't care about getting injured. We need him too.
Yeah,
and they're all one injury away from being extremely important.
Devin Brown is a luxury as a number 3, but McCord's the number 2 for a reason and is a year older, has a start under his belt from last year. So God forbid if something would happen to CJ, you got to make sure Kyle McCord's healthy too. It's not just the starters. All right, Taron Vincent. I had a chance to ask Larry Johnson about this yesterday. What's different about Taron Vincent? Because he comes in as the number 1 D tackle in the country. And finally now as a fifth-year senior, I mean, he's playing like it. I'm not saying he's the best defensive tackle in the country. That's Michael Hall Jr. But no, I'm serious. But he's playing at that level where we're like, man, was he overrated or was it all injuries? And Larry Johnson said it was a combination of things why now everything's coming together for him. Injuries was the reason that he was held back mostly, but now he's in the best shape of his life, knows the defense inside and out, has bought in, but made a big deal about what great shape he's in and just the toughness he's playing with. I love seeing that out of Taron Vincent because at one point I was just hoping that he'd be a solid player. He's definitely playing. He's not playing at an All-American level, don't get me wrong, but he's playing better than solid. I'm here for it, Bax.
Yeah, he's been a plus this year. And I think any team that is worth its salt when it comes to winning championships has a couple senior level players that maybe perform better than anticipated coming into the year. The reference I always like to make is Curtis Grant with the 2014 team, right? He's another guy that for a couple years everybody was complaining about and wondering what happened.
Number 1 linebacker in the country. I love that. That's just like Taron Vincent, number 1 D tackle in the country. Go ahead, sir. Great comparison.
Yep. And by the way, the other comparison is there's a really, really good young player named Raekwon McMillan trying to take some of his playing time that year. And he stepped up and battled it out to play a fair amount that season. Curtis Grant was a great player for the Bucs that year after a career of struggles. It's kind of been like that for Taron Vincent too. He had a career of struggles, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's having a really strong year. And some of the young pups are pushing him, but special seasons require some people to take steps that maybe they delayed or hadn't yet taken, right? Taron Vincent's the kind of senior leadership on the D line that we really didn't have last year. And we need that kind of leadership. And the way he's performing is a really nice added bonus because that's a position where coming into the season, we weren't talking about Taron Vincent. We weren't talking about Michael Hall. We were hoping Tyleik Williams could get the job done and then we'd find something somewhere else that was okay. Now we have a lot of players that can play well on that line. And guess what? Whenever your veterans are the ones that lead the way, the best leadership you can have comes from the players. So Vincent's quietly a very important player to that defense, and I don't think enough people are talking about him.
Let's look at the other line. I mean, we got a chance to speak with Justin Frye. Like I said, I'm telling you, man, you can just tell certain guys are future head coaches. This guy's a future head coach. Just the way he carries himself, just the way he taught. There's no doubt in my mind Justin Frye is going to be a future P5 head coach. He better not be one and done, though, Jeff Hafley style. I don't think he will be. I don't think any of
these guys will be one and done.
I don't either. I think Ryan probably talked to him about that. Now, if a certain Jeff Hafley, I got to know him a little bit. He didn't expect to be one and done either, but kind of Boston College gave him an offer he couldn't refuse, so to speak. But Justin Frye in this offensive line, I'm so impressed with Justin Frye. Now, this offensive line isn't perfect. They've had their moments where they, you're like, come on, what's going on there? But overall, he's been a huge improvement over Studrawa, and love what I'm seeing out of this offensive line.
Yeah, it's been a real step in the right direction, and you're right. Some of these guys, you can just tell they sort of have it, right? And Frye was one of those guys from the start where you're like, yeah, he has it. That guy he'll be a head coach somewhere in the future. Hopefully he is a little pickier and waits for his opportunity, unlike Hafley. I know Hafley loved Boston College, and there was the whole emotional draw there. But if you look at what's going on there for BC, it might have been smart for Hafley to wait for a better job to open up for another year or two. That'll be a bit of a cautionary tale, by the way, for any of these assistants that may have offers after this year, most likely Knowles. That's where Ryan Day goes, look, you can take this okay school's offer and go and get beat up like Half is up there at Boston College, or you could wait a year or two and get a better offer at a better school where you're in a better position to win. But yeah, the O-line, I'm getting off topic here. The O-line has definitely been improved this year. And, we had this syndrome for a couple of years where we kept trying to convince ourselves in the summer that this year will be the best offensive line yet. This year will be the best offensive line yet. This year. And then we saw last year where it was like, well, we're starting 4 tackles, and it didn't work so well. Well, guess what happened? They went back to basics. The offensive line they played with an attitude this year, and that's been really good to see. And it also helps when you have some serious raw talent at the tackle positions between Johnson and Jones. I mean, the Paris and Thanos are I would be very hard-pressed to believe there's a better set of tackles in the country right now than those two. And the interior has been nothing if not rock solid. This group just came together. I think they needed a new voice, and that coaching change for Frye was a great decision. And, the truth is even the backups have looked pretty reasonable when they got in, and that was something we were worried about in August too.
A couple more, I'll get you out of here. Penn State at Michigan. Oh, yeah, baby. I can't wait for this. Are you a Nittany Lion fan this week? Because I am. It's the one time all year I'm a Nittany Lion fan. Hey, most of my family's originally from Altoona, Pennsylvania. I mean, I was born and raised in Ohio. But one time a year I'm a Penn State fan, and that's when they play Michigan. Who do you think is going to win this game?
Well, I have 2 teams, the Buckeyes and whoever plays Michigan.
Whoever's playing Michigan.
Let's go. Yay, Nits, or whatever they say over there. But
we are whatever.
Yeah. It's like the second.
It was a 3-yard gain. Calm down with it. They play that after they might be like 2nd and 6, and they get 3 yards, and that stupid Nittany Lion. Go ahead. All right.
Punt return, 3 yards.
We love it. We love it this week, although it's at Michigan, but you know what I mean. All right, go ahead. Who's going to win this game?
I'm picking Penn State, and you know why? Michigan hasn't played anybody with a pulse. Like, Penn State went to Auburn and won down there, and I know Auburn's not great, but that's a good road win. Like, Penn State is a solid physical team, and I'm not a Sean Clifford fan. I've never been a Sean Clifford fan. I don't think he's ever going to be a quarterback they win a championship with. But if J.J. McCarthy is going to be captain checkdown for our rivals up north, then Clifford's good enough to beat them. This has the Iowa and Northern Iowa score written all over it, like a 13-9 kind of game, right, where both defenses will probably dominate. I think Penn State's my pick in this one, but this is the next 2 best teams in the conference in a year where the Big Ten's others are all kind of in a miasma of not mediocre but not good right now. These are the 3 teams that are clearly above everybody else. And, we're going to know who our number 1 competitor is for the division very quickly on Saturday. And I think it's going to be Penn State this time around. I really do.
All right, by the way, I agree with you. I think Penn State's going to win, but it's going to be really close. Who are your 4 college football playoff teams? Not like right now, but like who do you think is going to who are the 4 teams that are going to make the CFP, Bax?
Oh, Ohio State, who hopefully will be the number 1 seed, because I think there's a gap between 2 and 3 and 1, or between 1, 2, 3, and then number 4. I think that Bama and Georgia are both going to get in. Tennessee's having a nice year. Tennessee might even beat one of those 2. But at the end of the day, there's going to be some SEC shenanigans to get 2 teams into the playoffs, like there always is. So it's annoying as all get out, barring there being a complete mess out there, or both the Pac-12 and the Big 12 getting an undefeated team in. I think that's what's going to happen. And then the 4th team right now, you want my humble opinion? I think it's going to be USC. I really do.
Over Clemson?
Over Clemson. Clemson's going to drop a game somewhere. They're not great, right?
Right.
And USC is going to have the benefit of the fact that UCLA is also undefeated and through the majority of the difficult part of their schedule, right? So I think that USC and UCLA are going to end up being like a top 10 kind of matchup towards the end of the year, and that's going to get some marquee attention. And you have to remember, the USC has, they have some credibility right now with a legit former playoff coach taking their team over. So I think right now that you're probably looking at Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and USC. But I remain open to the option to have the SEC eat itself a little bit and allow somebody hilarious like a TCU or something, or a Kansas State or something to sneak in. But I think those are going to be the 4, would be my guess.
We're pretty close. I'm going to go with Clemson, but you're right. I mean, they're not that good. But I still think they're going to skate through somehow, barely escape, I should say, like they have against Wake Forest, like they did against NC State, even against our aforementioned friend Jeff Hafley in Boston College. That game is tied 3-3 late in the first half. That game's tied 3-3 late in the first half. They didn't even play well against Boston College, and they still jumped Michigan because Michigan's tied to 10 with Indiana at halftime. It was only up 17-10 going into the 4th quarter, and Clemson still jumps Michigan. So I agree with yours, but I'll switch Clemson in for USC. As long as the
I'd rather play Clemson as
all we care about.
USC. USC can throw the ball. A better matchup for OSU would be Clemson, right? Or Georgia.
I would love an Ohio State Clemson matchup again.
Oh, me too. Ohio State Clemson is the number. I am thoroughly convinced that no matter what, we will not get to avoid one of the 2 SEC teams in the first round. I just don't see it happening. If they're both in, they're not going to play them again, and we're going to be stuck with one of them. So this is just the cynic in me. It's just the cynic in me, right? Even though Ohio State probably should be the number 1 team right now, I don't understand. Like, look what's going on right now. I can't wait till the committee starts making their picks, because I want to see what they think. Because it's, to me, absolutely freaking absurd that Ohio State is not the number 1 team right now. We've watched both Georgia and Alabama scuttle through some narrow wins, and both of them probably should have a loss right now already. And meanwhile, Ohio State's just sitting at 2 because the other team's SEC or some crap.
If Ohio State had struggled against Kent State, they would have dropped to like 5th.
Yeah.
Toledo, I'm not even joking when I say this. Toledo would beat Kent State by 2 touchdowns. Like, Toledo is markedly better than Kent State.
And Missouri stinks. And you want to know the other thing too, Dave? Look what you just mentioned. Michigan fell despite winning by 3 touchdowns because it was close at half. But the Southern School in Clemson didn't get that same benefit of the doubt. And they didn't have the excuse of one of their most beloved players of the last 2 decades and current coach collapsing on the sideline in the middle of the game. You think that might have affected Michigan a little bit? Like, I hate standing up for those guys, but let's be real here. That was horse pucky dropping the Wolverines behind Clemson because of that Indiana game. And by the way, Indiana's a wildly better team than Boston College. So at the end of the day, none of these current polls matter. Thank goodness. But let's see what the committee has to say. Because if when the committee makes their first rankings, what is it, in 2 weeks when the committee starts, Dave, something like that? If we come out and we blast Iowa and Ohio State's not number 1, it's a joke, because it's all it's been doing. I've been saying this since we beat Notre Dame. Is it's setting it up that the 2 SEC teams won't play each other in the first round, and they're 2 of the 3 best teams. And it's not fair to Ohio State to have to play one SEC team one week and then the other week, even if when they should be the number 1 team. We got hosed a couple years ago when LSU was the number 1 seed over Ohio State, when Ohio State should have been the 1 seed. And that was a year where there were 3 teams that were wildly better than everybody. But then because of the SEC bias, LSU got to go beat up on Oklahoma while we had to go play Clemson, who was a good team, and then the refs hose us, right? If Ohio State's the number 1 seed that year, they probably win the Natty, in my opinion. So, it is what it is. But this stuff matters. That's the blunt truth, is this stuff matters. So I'm going to make a little bit of noise about it because, like Joel Klatt said, it's clear Ohio State should be the number 1 team. The only reason they're not is because of this whole SECPN bias right now. Ohio State's been the best team in the country so far. And if this keeps up, they need to be number 1, period.
That's right. Great stuff out of the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. You can catch his column on Bucknuts every Sunday. It is The Bucket. Thank you to Bax. Thanks to all of you. We really appreciate it. I know you have a lot of choices. Really appreciate you guys making the Bucknuts Morning 5 a part of your morning, Monday through Friday. We also have our live post-game show right after every Ohio State game. We won't have one this Saturday, but Patrick Murphy has his podcast, Buckeye Happy Hour, every Friday around 5 o'clock. So we have a lot of podcasts here on Bucknuts, and we really appreciate you guys being part of it. Thanks again to Bax. Thanks to all of you. Hope everyone has